Good morning. It's at Love Clark, and I wanted to read a inspiring little article out of the New Philadelphia Trumpet magazine. I thought it was very interesting. It's about teaching the unteachable. For anyone that's a teacher, has been a teacher, or just teaches young children at home, their own kids, or people on the internet trying to teach Christians the Bible, this can be teaching the unteachable is a worst nightmare. Okay, so let's begin. How can you reach the mind of a man who knows no words? For the first 27 years of his life, Alfonso lived in isolation. No, he wasn't in solitary confinement or on a desert island. He was born totally deaf and never ever learned that there was such a thing as language. When Alfonso was a boy, his Mexican Indian family wrote him off as unteachable. During his mid-20s, he was taken to a special needs center in Los Angeles, California. Several teachers tried to educate him, but they also thought he was unteachable. Then came Susan Schaller. When Schaller first met Alfonso, he was sitting in a corner of a classroom. His face looked like a painting from a Mexican mural, with wild black eyes above high cheekbones. She wrote in a man without words. She approached him and in sign language said, "Hello, my name is Susan." Alfonso looked at her and signed back, "Hello, my name is Susan." Schaller shook her head and signed, "No, I'm Susan." He responded, "No, I'm Susan." This continued for several minutes. Everything she said he mimicked, but Schaller was sure she saw intelligence in his eyes. There was a bewilderment and fear in his look, and something else as well, alertness, intensity, and yearning, she wrote. She soon realized that his mimicking her meant he didn't understand, that she was using signs to convey ideas. She realized that he didn't know language existed. The enormity of this is hard to grasp. For us who use language to formulate every thought and convey every idea, the concept of languagelessness is almost incomprehensible. Alfonso didn't know he was deaf or that sounds existed. His whole life he'd seen people's mouths moving. He saw others responding to those movements, but thought everyone else figured it out visually. He thought, "I don't get it, so I must be stupid." Schaller was convinced he wasn't stupid. For hours a day she would try teaching him signs. For hours a day he would fail to understand. It went on for weeks. Although they were only inches apart, Schaller said they might as well have been on different planets. She wondered if he was too old to be helped. Maybe he'd been languageless for too long. She considered giving up, but she persevered. "I refused to accept the idea of hopelessness," she wrote. After several fruitless weeks, Schaller had an idea. She set Alfonso on the classroom's edge. Then she placed an empty chair across from herself. She stopped talking to Alfonso and spoke only to the empty chair. To the chair, she would hold up a picture of a cat and explain the word, cat. Then She would hop onto the other chair and pretend to be Alfonso. She would pretend to finally understand. With facial expressions, she would demonstrate, "I got it." This motion of the hand is a symbol representing the furry animal. Excuse me. Charlotte went back and forth playing both student and teacher. Alfonso watched it all from the sidelines. This continued for days. Alfonso often looked bored. One day, as Charlotte was signing out to the invisible Alfonso for the 100th time, she saw the actual Alfonso shift. Suddenly, he sat up, straight and rigid, his head back and his chin pointing forward. She wrote, "The whites of his eyes expanded as if in terror." Alfonso had broken through. He realized that the idea of a cat in one person's mind could join the idea of a cat in another person's head just by signing the word cat. He surveyed the room and understood that everything has a name. He slapped his hands on the table and looked at Charlotte. She signed table. He understood. He pointed to the door. She said door. He understood. After a few minutes of rapid learning, Alfonso realized that what this meant. He collapsed on his desk, sobbing. He saw the prison that he had lived in for 27 years. He saw that he'd been cut off from society. He understood why he'd always felt so isolated. It was emotional for student and teacher, but they soldiered on. After the breakthrough, teaching Alfonso to speak was easy. He was intelligent, eager to learn, and passionate about language. Charlotte saw that her work was done. She left Alfonso to keep learning with other teachers. When she visited him 5 years later, Alfonso was fluent in American Sign Language and could read and write English proficiently. She asked him to describe what his world had been like before that breakthrough. The question unsettled Alfonso. He said he was incapable of thinking in the dark way he used to. He didn't remember what his thoughts were for those 27 years. He said he couldn't discuss that dark time. A rich lesson lies in this story. In most roles in our lives, as husbands and wives, as fathers and mothers, as siblings, friends, employees, we will be more valuable if we are more effective teachers. Sometimes those whom we teach might have major barriers to learning, and we as teachers may need to dismantle those barriers. We will often need phenomenal drive, patience, resourcefulness, and perseverance, like Schaller had with Alfonso. If we use these tools, we will be better able to enrich the lives of others. We might even be able to teach the unteachable. Okay. Teaching the unteachable. Alright, well, this is also a good example. In a meaner way, I'll say this is like trying to teach these Babylonian Christians. Or, in another way, it's like, you guys, you're not stupid. I know you're not stupid. You might be deaf, though. You're not listening. You're not opening your ears. You're not actually given a chance to listen and to hear. Okay? Because you've never been taught or told the right truths either. But with these Babylonians, it's just the same as trying to teach them, in a way. But now, here's another part of this little story that I could add to it. I'm 36 years old, and I'm barely starting to learn really what happened in the history of the Bible. So, and I was raised in church my whole life, and I don't mean that we just went to church. I mean I believed in the Bible and read the books and listened to the pastor. Okay. But let's flip this around now. 35 years, we could use me as the example, or Idolfonso as the example of me. He went for 27 years without being able to understand and didn't know this whole other world existed. I just barely woke up out a few years ago out of the Babylonian mind control, brainwashing, okay? So, and I'm 36 years old. No, I've never been deaf, but spiritually deaf to a degree, yeah, or blind, one of the two. The point is, you can see what I'm saying. This is frustrating. A lot of people could just give up. I don't want to give up on people. I don't want to give up on myself. I'm still learning, and I'm still correcting. My wife, that's one of her problems that she has with me being in... It's one of the few problems she has with me being in Bible college and things like that. When I learn something new and I correct myself, there's so many corrections and so much new stuff to learn. When I learn something new to be true, absolutely true, as far as I can, understand in the Bible, when I find that new truth, I squash those old ones. It doesn't take me long before I squash the old ones and I'm on to the new ones. And it happens so much. My wife gets tired of well, I thought it was this way, and now it's this way, and now, but, you said this, now you say this. And I try to read her Bible, but she's not a very good reader. But that's just, for those people that can't read very well, or the people that just, that example, This guy was deaf. These Christians feel deaf. It's like, you guys are not stupid, though. You are not stupid. And you're not deaf, you're just not using your ears. And you're not using your eyes. And I was one of them, and so were you. So let's just praise the Lord. Right arm, right leg, left leg. Oh, Father Abraham had many sons, and many sons had Father Abraham. You know that song, right? So, if you're a child of Israel, naturally you're going to be brilliant. Not always in all areas. They're not all. Each child's different. Each child is going to be, you might have a genius here, or you might have a flunky there, but, I don't believe that every child of, I just don't believe every child of Adam is a perfectly made person, or there wouldn't be no reason for Christ. Okay? Now listen. I feel really bad for people stuck in this. This is kind of like a Helen Keller thing. But he's just deaf, and he just didn't know that you could sign for 27 years. He didn't know it was a language barrier. He didn't know there was a language. And he said he could not go back to that dark time, his dark way of thinking, to explain all those years. Anyway, I'm going to let it go at that. And this is Love Clark. Love you guys. And hope you learn a lesson from this teaching.